do you walk away from that?
Yeah, and you really can't. And Stan, since you've been researching this over all these years, from the moment that television producer told you about Jesse Marcel, and you found him, have you changed any of your views on the Roswell incident, one way or another?
Well, I've got some stuff that's still in my gray basket. The question of who saw bodies, for example, I've ebbed and flowed with. Certainly in my initial conversation with Jesse Marcel, Sr., there was no mention of bodies. If you look at Don's book, it's clear that apparently there were bodies observed. Now, it's kind of ironic. I was the guy who found, it was one of the surprising moments when I found Walter Haut. And now it's still in my gray basket. If anybody's listening who was a pilot on one of the trips from the Generals from Fort Worth, Texas to Roswell on July 8th, 1947, I'd sure wish them to call in. So that's part of it. And also, I'm still curious. I worked in industry, so I'm interested in building things and testing things. And I'd sure like to know what all we've learned. People ask me, what did the government find when they tested the material? I don't get classified documents from the government about Roswell wreckage. So it's been an irritation that, you hear all these stories, people handled the stuff, you have some idea where they might have sent the materials, but where's the paper? I want those documents, and I doubt very much. Maybe at the end of the movie, somebody will say, "Hey, I got what you want." It's about time. But
Stan, last week I had Paul Hellyer on the show, former defense minister of Canada, and he is so convinced that these are real, that governments aren't telling us about it. Primarily the United States.
I've read his new book. What is it? The Tunnel. Anyway, he's got a new book out, and I take issue with a couple of things in the book, but I found it an interesting read. I'm still not a fan of Colonel Corso, and there's one other person who he credits with degrees and so forth that the guy didn't have, and I did a lot of checking on, but the basic thrust that, we live in a strange world in which we seem to want to ignore the recovery of an alien spacecraft, which is a very strange thing when you think about it.
Absolutely. It is. And Don, how about you? As you continue to move forward into the Roswell case, I mean, as witnesses pass on, are we ever going to get to the bottom of this?
Well, we certainly are making every final effort. In fact, within the last month, we've talked to, amazingly enough, 3 new first-hand witnesses, albeit more on the peripheral, not directly involved, but nonetheless describing events that piece, those missing segments of the puzzle, and are still describing the same event. A flight engineer who was with the 393rd Bomb Group, who for years denied, there was anything unusual. And as Stan was just describing, that, the paper trail, the lack thereof, and for people who, for the reverse engineering of this alleged crash, what have been the breakthroughs? Where have the quantum leaps taken place? And this engineer said to me, Don, before I die, I'd like for you guys to prove how that thing flew.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have a moving part on it.
Well, and
that's a flight engineer, a flight mechanic who would recognize such things.
So many people, when we talk about ETs and visitations, they always think of it in terms of our current propulsion system. And of course, that's not how they got here. And by the way, Stanton, Light at the End of the Tunnel, the survival plan for the human species. That's Paul Hellyer's title of his book. Pretty long, but that's it. The movie is now. You've got the option. We're going to bring in Bryce Abel in just a moment after the break here to talk about how he plans to do this. He's going to write the screenplay for Magic Men. And tell me a little bit about exactly how this all came about. How did how did they find you? How did you find them?
Well, I've known Bryce for about 15 years. Remember that he did the television series
He did
about
Dark Skies. Dark Skies.
Yes, Dark Skies. He did that. Really is based on the notion of an MJ-12, and so I don't know what made this all come together. Were we all in the same place at the same time, Don? I'm not even sure about that.
No, I think it was a case of where you were talking to Bryce on your own, and I was following up with Showtime as far as after the Roswell movie. And I think we both, at least in my case, screenwriter Tracy Torme, who did Fire in the Sky, we were both good friends too. And I was introduced to Bryce through Tracy, and would always update him and fill him in on some of our latest adventures, so to speak, every time I'd be out in Hollywood. And it was Bryce who then, taking notes between the two of us, I think he finally just came up with his own conception of let's go beyond the case itself. Let's go into the investigation. And I think it surprised both Stan and I.
Yeah, it did, because it sounded like such a sensible idea. Why didn't I think of that earlier? It's kind of the thing. And I think we can make it work. And the kicker is, look, I've traveled all over the world, all 50 states I've lectured in 9 provinces, 16 other countries. This is an international story that people are interested in. I got asked about Roswell in Australia,
it's
Korea, in Brazil, in Israel, in Turkey, So it's time to get the real story out there, and done by somebody who has not come lately to the notion of flying saucers. What gets aggravating is sometimes I get calls from Hollywood people, and we're thinking about making a show, and it's clear they don't know anything, but they recognize the business potential. People are interested in flying saucers. Let's make a movie and take advantage of it. And, even the New York Times did a absolutely ridiculous article about UFOs about a month ago now. And you wonder, why didn't the writer do his homework? And so it's time to put the facts out there. I mean, like I say, even the New York Times recognize people are interested, but they think they're only interested in hearing nonsense, which is what the major newspapers have carried most of the time in the last 63 years. It's time to redo a PhD thesis that was done more than 30, almost 40 years ago, press coverage of UFOs. Dr. Herbert Strentz had some strong comments to make about the inadequacy, the failure to deal with the right people, all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe this movie will stand up as something that says, hey, you guys, get with it. It's about time.
It is about time. And I'm looking forward to this entire production. And when do you expect it to be, I don't want to say wrapped up, Stan or Don, but at least the gears really moving ahead with this now?
While I'm still alive, I'll be 80 in 4 years, and I want to beat that deadline.
Yes, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Hey, by the way, 7.5's just hit a small South Pacific island nation, and tsunami warnings out there. Active
that's
planet.
large, 7.5,
yeah. They don't get much bigger than that lately. That's
No, but your question as far as when do we expect, again, this has been a work in process. We've done countless interviews, life story experiences with both Bryce and Don Most, many conference calls. We had a press conference at the festival in Roswell just a month ago, laying out the agenda as far as what both Bryce and Don anticipate what they hope to accomplish in the near future. But as you know, George, I mean, it's going to be a drawn-out process. And I personally feel it is the most fitting, and I hope it's not finale for Stan, but long overdue. It's something that he certainly has earned above any one of us for all of his years of devotion, his lifetime pursuit, and the fact that he has never backed down. He has never given up as far as on, again, what potentially is the biggest story of the millennium.
Oh, it'll never be a finale for Stan Friedman. He's going on forever. And we'll be back in just a moment as we talk with Bryce Zabel and Don Most, part of the other players in this movie, Magic Men. We'll be back.
Get daily show updates